Diego, a non-religious. And our motto is live better, help often, and wonder more. We have these monthly assemblies, do community service, and have social events so we can celebrate this one life that we know we have together. If this is your first assembly, could you please raise your hand and keep it up? We're really happy to see you. So our next item is Life Happens. If you have a Life Happens event or something that you want to share, you can write them on the note cards out the front when you come in, and we read them during the assembly. Or if you have photos that go along with your Life Happens and you let us know in the week before the assembly, we can put them on slides and get them up for everyone to see. And so these are our Life Happens for today. Lewis Rogers says, I have a new job near Bakersfield, California. It is in testing via high-performance liquid chromatography for fungal toxins in nuts. I enjoy being back in the lab. And Shannon S. says, my 8-year-old, 9-year-old, and I are headed out for a 3-week long road trip. This trip includes a week camping in Glacier National Park and a few days in Canada. Life is an adventure. I tell them my goal is to show them as much of North America as I can. That sounds fabulous. Okay, Matt and Elisa are moving to LA at the end of this month, and they are in escrow for a condo. Congratulations. We'll miss you. Hopefully you'll come back and visit. Violet is on her 8th grade trip to New York, Boston, and Gettysburg. She's having a blast. American history. Way to go. And then Bab says, my sweet husband just left for a 2.5-week backpacking trip. I love being here with friends, so I'm not lonely. We love having you here, Bab. An anonymous assembler says, I saw a man walking a big fluffy white cat on a leash on First Street. Had to share. Thanks for sharing. And Jim Davis says, in 2 weeks, he is going to celebrate his 80th birthday. That's incredible, Jim. Cindy says, it was a beautiful thing to march with 60,000 plus people yesterday for the No Kings protester march. Took some pictures, and you can see it was a really good time. It was very peaceful, it was very respectful, it was a lot of fun, and people had amazing signs. And this last one is from Laura. Laura says, our household has a new family member, Charlie. Aww. She's inquisitive and spunky and brings us joy. Here she is. The banana is for sale. Yes.
I'll give you $1.
Oh, that's scale. I didn't see the seed. The banana is for scale. Okay, and then she ends by saying, yes, we know she has resting bitch face. All right, and next is Help Happens, and here's Jen McCown, chair of our community service committee, to share what we can do to help others often.
Morning. Morning. So each month we provide a meal at one of the safe parking sites run by Dreams for Change. And they have let us know that they are short on a lot of items that the people that they serve are in need of. So they've provided us a list. There it is. It's also up on our Facebook site. So if you're able, we're kind of running a little bit of a donation drive. If you're able to provide any of those things, we have numerous sites where you can drop things off. You can bring them to Assembly. and we will get those to them so those people living in their cars can have the things they need. Things like hygiene items, clothing, items to make living in their car easier. So if you're interested in any of that, please contact us through Facebook, through email, or let any of us organizers here know today, and we'll get you hooked up to get those to us so we can get those to Dreams for Change. And then our next beach cleanup is going to be on June 29th at our adopted beach at South Shores. That we work with I Love It Clean San Diego through their Adopt a Beach program. So it'll be from 10 a.m. to noon. We provide all the supplies. We just need people to show up and help us keep it clean. So we hope you'll join us. Thank you.
Thanks, Jen. That's all really good stuff. I really like that list. I wonder if there's, will that list go up on our website maybe so people can peruse it? We could try. Yeah. That's fantastic. So now we're going to have a reading, and Brigitte is going to read a poem by Sarah Tisdale for us.
It's a good thing I brought my glasses. There will come soft rains by Sarah Tisdale. There will come soft rains and the smell of the ground, and swallows circling with their shimmering sound, and frogs in the pools singing at night, and wild plum trees in tremulous white. So that's a hard word. Robins will wear their feathery fire, whistling their whims on a low fence wire. And not one will know of the war, not one will care at last when it is done. No one would mind, neither bird nor tree, if unkind perished utterly. And spring herself, when she woke at dawn, would scarcely know that we were gone.
Thank you, Brigitte. So next we have our speaker. And our speaker today is Dr. Alexander Sasha Gershunov. Dr. Alexander Sasha Gershunov is a research meteorologist in the Division of Climate, Atmospheric Science, and Physical Oceanography, otherwise known as CASPO, at the Scripps Institution of Oceanography at UCSD. Sasha's research focuses on interrelated aspects of weather, climate, and society. His professional interests include understanding the links between regional weather extremes and large-scale climate variability and change, long-range climate prediction, the atmospheric water cycle, precipitation and drought, heat waves, cold snaps, marine layer clouds, atmospheric rivers, and Santa Ana winds. He also works across disciplines to quantify the impacts of weather and climate on wildfires, energy, ecosystems, water resources, and public health, as well as to understand better the influence of climate on society and the human influence on climate. Sasha has published over 100 peer-reviewed research articles and is affiliated with various organizations focused on regionally relevant weather and climate research with benefits to society ranging from education to resource management. Sasha will stay after the assembly today to answer your questions, so hold your questions until after. And please welcome Sasha Gershunov.
Thank you, comrades, for having me here, for inviting me to talk about things I am supposed to know professionally about. And actually, you know, the title was not made up by me. I don't think science should be hyped up. I think I'm here not to warn you, but to inform. And you can take the information and interpret it any way you like. So I am, where is it? Is there a clicker here? This is it? Okay. And, oh, am I going the right way? Wrong way? So, yeah, name is pronounced Sasha, but it's written Alexander because I'm from this part of the world where they speak like this. And, Sasha is nickname for Alexander. It's a very, it's a very aggressive and very large country. And if I tell you that I'm from the center of evil in the modern world, you can guess the city I'm from. I've been in the States in California since I was 12 years old, and basically I'm a Californian. And by training, I'm a meteorologist and a statistician, and I think you all know what a meteorologist is. And for those of you who don't know what a statistician is, it's somebody who doesn't have enough personality to become an accountant. But that's exactly what makes me a climatologist, because climate is the statistics of weather, just like epidemiology is the statistics of health outcomes and so on. Basically, the real title of my talk is Weather on Steroids. And how many of you think that all weather extremes are exacerbated by climate change? Okay, and how many of you think that climate change has no impact on any weather pattern? Okay, well, the truth is somewhere in between. And basically, I think that the right analogy, or a correct analogy, is you know, everybody wants to know, did this heat wave break records because of climate change? Or did this hurricane drop more precipitation than ever fell on Houston, let's say, because of climate change? It's like asking, did this athlete break the world record because she was using steroids? You know, there's so many different things that impact the performance of an athlete on, you know, in any particular event. How well she slept, her mood, how well she ate, and so on. And steroids is one of those things. And you know, it's hard to say that for a particular weather event, although we're getting to that point for some. But you see the impact of the steroids when you compare the statistics of her performances in a pre-steroid season and the statistics taken in a steroid-fueled season. Then you clearly see the impact of the steroids. So this is the team that I'm privileged to work with. And everybody is studying some, you know, weather pattern, weather extreme, that are listed here. You know, this is the portfolio of weather extremes and patterns that we study. They're basically impactful weather patterns, you know, and we study how these weather extremes are related to climate variability and climate change, how to use those relationships to understand and predict these impactful weather events better. We are also very interested in the impacts of heat waves on human health, drought and heat on wildfire and wildfire smoke impacts on health. We're interested in the impacts of marine layer clouds and coastal ecosystems, and we work with the appropriate relevant experts in those fields to quantify those impacts. We're also interested in the impacts of atmospheric rivers, and extreme precipitation and drought on water resources, and so on. And people use this information. It's not hype, it's information. It's basically information that people can trust and make appropriate informed decisions about how to manage whatever it is that they're dealing with. Water resources, environmental impacts on human health, and so on. Ecosystems, so on. So I'll talk about mostly heat waves and wildfires, because these are the events that are most the extremes that are most directly impacted by global climate change. They're regional and local, super impactful extremes that are directly impacted by global warming. Not all of these are impacted the same way, and some are impacted in a different way. You know, extreme cold is a very impactful weather extreme, but global warming does not exacerbate extreme cold. So, the world has been warming, especially since the 70s. You know, where you know, the warming actually started earlier in the early part of the 20th century, but it really started accelerating in the last 6, 7 decades, 5, 6, 7 decades. Why is it happening? Well, really, the main reason that explains all of the warming, the only reason that explains all of it, is how we energize the world, we humans. So we dig up fossil fuels, coal, crude oil, natural gas, which has been accumulating in the ground for tens and hundreds of millions of years. This is fossilized organic matter. And basically we dig it up and we burn it up in a matter of, you know, on the scales of a few human lifetimes. Now, when we burn that up, a lot of pollution comes out, which has, you know, impacts of its own, but there's one special gas called carbon dioxide, which is not seen, it's not smelled, but it stays in the atmosphere for decades. And the atmosphere, you know, if you look at it from space, is a very thin layer. So these fossil fuels, when burned up, they end up increasing the carbon dioxide concentrations in the atmosphere. And carbon dioxide is what kind of gas? Greenhouse gas. Let's talk about what that is. Actually, the greenhouse effect was first studied, and the connection between increasing carbon dioxide concentrations in the atmosphere and global warming was made in the 1850s by a woman scientist who wasn't trained, Eunice Foote, and she actually was the first to make that connection. The idea of global warming, the theory of it, is that old. This is not a new thing. This is something that people have been expecting for well over 150 years. But when the greenhouse gases actually, you know, accumulated in the atmosphere, pretty much since the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, and this man who used to work at Scripps Institution of Oceanography, Dave Keeling, he went and took the first measurements of carbon dioxide out in the middle of the ocean, far away from the sources of the pollution, out in Hawaii on Mauna Loa, and set up this lab where they take samples to this day. This started in the late 50s and showed very definitively that carbon dioxide is rising from year to year to year. And this is because of the way that we deal with energy. That we mostly fuel our world, power our world by burning fossil fuels. So Dave's son, Ralph Keeling, is actually continuing this work, and which is getting pretty challenging, to say the least, in this current time we're living in. Carbon dioxide is a greenhouse gas. It's not the only greenhouse gas, and it's not the main greenhouse gas, but it's the one that human society impacts and increases in the atmosphere. So the greenhouse effect And basically, what greenhouse gases do, well, they don't do anything to solar radiation. So the sun, they're transparent to solar radiation. The sun shines right through them. The solar energy is absorbed at the surface. Well, some of it is reflected by clouds. Some of it is reflected by snow and ice. But most of it is absorbed at the surface of the Earth, which warms up, and then it re-radiates energy at Earth temperatures, much lower temperatures, and this energy has longer wavelengths. It's infrared radiation, and now those same gases that are transparent to solar radiation, they are opaque to infrared radiation. They absorb infrared radiation, they heat up, and then they re-radiate it in all directions, including back down to the surface. So the surface warms up. In fact, the fact that there's a greenhouse effect, it makes our global average temperature warm enough for water to exist in all three phases and make life possible. It's very important that we have a greenhouse effect. It's natural, but we are increasing it unnaturally. And I think the greenhouse effect is kind of a misnomer. It's more of a blanket, really. It's like, we cover ourselves with a blanket, which is not warm itself. It just absorbs the energy from our body, and then it keeps it in. And basically, increasing carbon dioxide in the atmosphere is like thickening the blanket. You put on a thicker blanket, well, you get hotter during the night. So that's the greenhouse effect, and that explains why the world is warming. Of course, there are a lot of different fluctuations around that warming trend. And for example, when we get an El Nino event, we typically break the world temperature record, the observed temperature record. You see those spikes. They're all related to El Nino events, which is a warming in the central tropical Pacific. It's large scale and strong enough to affect global temperature. But on top of that warming trend, every time we get an El Nino, you can pretty much bet that we're going to break the world temperature record. So of course, as the world warms, it's not just the warming of the world. The warmer world impacts different weather patterns and weather extremes. And that's where the steroids of climate change come in. So I'm just going to talk, bring it back to California and talk about heat waves because, as you can imagine, as the world warms, heat wave activity all around the world is becoming more intense, more frequent, and heat waves are also becoming longer lasting. As you will see in California, they're also changing flavor. So this is just the average temperature in California, how it's been changing. You can see that it's been tracking pretty much the global warming pattern, the trend, except there's more variability because now this is a smaller region. You're not averaging over such a, the whole globe. So the trend is not as, it's not as clear when you pick it out from the variability around. So what's happening to heat waves in this warming state of ours? Oops, wrong way. All right, well, take any long-term station, meteorological station, and look at how often hot and cold extremes records get broken by decade. And this is what you will see in pretty much any place you look. The red are the high temperature, hot records broken, and the blues are the numbers of cold temperature records broken. Now when you start out, it's 50-50, right? But as the world keeps warming, you pretty much break, mostly or only hot records. And it's very rare, even when it gets really cold, it's not as cold as it used to be in the 70s. Take any station, you see a similar kind of pattern. So now, if we look at heat wave activity, there are a couple of ways of looking at it. You know, temperatures are observed as daily maxima. In the 24-hour period, the maximum temperature typically occurs in the afternoon, and minimum temperatures, which typically occur at sunrise. And you can see that maximum temperatures, the red, and minimum temperatures have been warming, but minimum temperatures have been warming more. And when we look at heat wave activity on the right, it's basically looking at California-wide heat wave activity by year. And you can see that there are two time series. When the maximum temperature measure of heat wave activity, relatively speaking, exceeds the relative, it's always relative to the local climate, right? So it's anomalies that we're looking at in maximum and minimum temperature. But basically what you see there is that there's a new flavor of heat waves that's emerging. It used to be that most of our heat waves were daytime accentuated heat waves. It gets hot during the day, but then it cools off at night. And what we're seeing is a trend towards not only more extreme, more frequent, and longer lasting heat waves in California, like in the rest of the world, but we're also seeing a change in the flavor of heat waves. They're becoming more accentuated at night. It doesn't mean they're hotter at night than during the day. It just means that they don't cool off as much at night as they used to. And this happens because of another greenhouse gas. What's the most important greenhouse gas out there?
Nothing.
Say it again?
Nothing.
That's a trace gas. No, something that's much more prevalent and important that you actually feel every time. We're feeling it right now. It's water vapor. Water vapor globally accounts for about 85% of the greenhouse effect, but it's very variable. And basically, as the world warms, the warmer atmosphere can hold more water vapor. And that exacerbates the warming that we get from just the carbon dioxide alone. So these nighttime accentuated heat waves are humid heat waves, and it's a kind of a double whammy for health impacts, because not only is it harder to weather a day of humid heat when we're not used to it in this semi-arid climate, the nights don't cool off as much as we expect, and you know, people who are whose health is compromised, they really suffer the most, or workers outside, and so on. And actually, this shows, the map here shows deaths due to hyperthermia, to overheating, specifically in the unprecedented heat wave of 2006. And epidemiologists were asking, what is happening? Why are so many people dying? You know, so it was 147 people. Usually, you know, a big heat wave in California, maybe a few people die, but you know, and a lot go to hospital.
There is a laser on your pointer.
This, oh,
Decide you want to use it.
oh, thanks.
Yeah.
And this was unprecedented in the number of people that were being reported dead from hyperthermia, from overheating. But of course, that's an underestimation, because a lot more people die from other pre-existing conditions that get aggravated by heat, like stroke, like dehydration, like heart disease, and so on. And so it's an undercount. Really, when you look at the excess mortality for that particular event, it was more like 600 people. Totally unprecedented. That's when I got interested in heat waves, because epidemiology, you know, health professionals were asking, what's going on? Is this one of a kind, or is this, you know, heat wave a sign that something is changing? So, another thing that is typical for all over the world is that these extreme events, like heat waves and other extremes, they don't impact everybody the same way. This is where the idea of environmental justice comes in. You know, and if you look at these deaths that occurred from hyperthermia, most of them 99% of the cases were in zip codes where at least 50% of the residents live below poverty level. This is typical of weather extreme impacts around the globe. Okay, so basically that's the story about heat waves, and and there's that increase in heat wave activity for California. I want to say, hold on a second. There is a piece of art, a mosaic, that was inspired by our research on heat waves and drought, and it's beautiful, but when you look at it, it makes you feel parched. So that's California, and this is for San Diego County. It's more variable, but you can see that same increase, disproportionate increase in nighttime accentuated humid heat waves. Do I have more time, Laura, or shall I just wrap it up here?
Do you have a couple more minutes?
Okay, so let's add some smoke to this story. Heat waves also go along with drought. And actually, when during drought, heat waves can get stronger, especially the daytime, expressions of heat waves. And warmer temperatures certainly dry out the soil and the vegetation. It sucks the moisture out of the vegetation, and basically it makes the fuels more flammable. And we can see clearly that wildfires in California, this is cut off. This goes way higher. Wildfires in California have been burning several-fold more area lately than a few decades ago. And in large part, it's not the only part of the story, but in large part, that's due to this warming and drying of the fuels. When we look at our particular wildfires, they're driven by Santa Ana winds. There are two different types of wildfire. Fuel-dominated wildfire in montane forest regimes where there's a lot of fuel to burn. You don't necessarily need wind to burn it. You just need dry fuel. And that's where there's a really clear increase in area burned by fires due to climate change. Our fires here are different. They're wind-dominated. They're not forest fires. This is like chaparral, coastal sagebrush, and more invasive grasses that are much more flammable, that are burning. Not so much forest. So it's not fuel-dominated. It's when you have that dry wind and a spark happens to occur, there's never any lightning associated with Santa Ana winds. So the sparks are always human-caused. But they're always prevalent, especially as population pushes into that wildland-urban interface, into the wildland, the sloping backcountry, where the Santa Ana winds really roar. Santa Ana winds are downslope winds. They accelerate down the slopes of mountains, lee sides of the mountains. So basically, they're rooted in the high desert. They're the breath of the desert. They're dry, they're gusty, they're typically hot, and they have a seasonal cycle. They start up typically in October, and they peak in December. And they don't occur in the middle of summer. The reason that our typical wildfire season peaks in October is because Santa Ana winds, the first Santa Ana winds of the year, of the season, typically occur before the first rains of winter, when the fuels are dry after our long Mediterranean dry summer and flammable. And so this is why it's typically in October, but we've seen a spate of wildfires later and later and later. And so, for example, in 2017, December, we had the Thomas Fire, which was the biggest wildfire in California history at the time. Now it's only the biggest in Southern California. You know, it burns through most of December into January when the first rains occur. This year, the LA wildfires, they started in January because there was no rain until then. And I'm not saying that this later rain, beginning of the wet season, is due to climate change, but it's consistent with what we expect from climate change. Because what we expect is a narrowing of the wet season. So basically, widening of the dry summer and a narrowing of the wet winter, and a later start to the wet season. We haven't quite observed it because of this very high variability, but it's very consistent with what we expect in the future. And I think these types of wildfires that are additionally fueled by hotter conditions in the dry summer and drier fuels will be more frequent in a warmer future. So, of course, you know, there are impacts on health and other impacts of this. So basically, because of these impacts, we study these weather patterns. And we've started an art collection at Scripps, where the art is produced mainly by local artists who, through conversation with Scripps scientists, are inspired to make art that reflects the science. So here, for example, and you may recognize this guy here. You know, this is called tipping point, and basically it's humanity pushing the Earth over the precipice. Okay, what humanity is doing to the climate, and then what that climate change does to humanity. You know, here's the impact of heat waves and drought. Here's the impact of increasing extreme precipitation, sea level rise. When you look at this, you feel like you're drowning, but it's beautiful. So this is really why we do the work that we do. It's about providing information to increase resilience to extreme weather events and for better planning, more informed planning in the future. And hopefully, one way or another, we can use this information and you know, our positivity to make the world brighter for the new generations. Thank you, comrades. There's more to this, but I don't have time to go through it. I put some slides about atmospheric rivers, extreme precipitation, hydroclimate volatility, another art piece on atmospheric rivers at Scripps, but we don't have time to talk about it, and I yield the floor. Thank you.
And next we have another wonderful song from Paul and Jeff. So, hold on. There you go.
I think we ought to stand up. Shake it off a little bit. And we're going to sing this old song, which is fun. I love statistician because you don't have enough personality to become an accountant. Awesome. Don't know much about history. Don't know much about biology. Don't know much about science. Don't know much about the French I do. I do know that I love you. And I know that if you love me too, what a wonderful world this would be.
procrastination. I like to procrastinate within reason. I've been this way all my life. I like to stay up until I get sleepy as opposed to having a bedtime. And I like to wait to do laundry until I'm almost out of clean socks. And if I have to give a talk, like this one, I like to think about it for a few weeks and then finally put it together just a few days before the slides are due. And whoever is waiting for my slides, I'm sure I make them anxious. So this has mostly worked pretty well for me. I call it my theory of procrastination. It's always seemed to me that when you have a difficult task, excuse me, when you have a difficult task looming, letting your thoughts percolate for a bit can be useful. It can give your subconscious a chance to do some work in the background. Or as a friend of mine used to say, let the little gerbils run in your brain. Thank you. It can sharpen your senses and focus your mind when you wait until almost the last minute. And it can force you to prioritize and be more efficient with the amount of time that you actually have left. In short, when applied judiciously, a certain amount of procrastination actually helps me get shit done. But successful procrastination only works, for me at least, when there's a deadline. The deadline can be external, like tax day on April 15th, or it can be internally generated, like me knowing I want to get out for that walk before it actually gets dark, or wanting clean socks. How many of you have a to-do list? Anybody besides me? Yeah, so I live and die by my to-do list. It's how I manage my procrastination so it doesn't spiral out of control and into disaster. I used to keep my to-do list on little bits of paper that would sort of float around on my desk. And then with the advent of smartphones, now it lives on my phone. And my to-do list on my phone is actually kind of funny to me because the important stuff and the stuff that I know I kind of need to attend to earlier sits at the top. And the things that don't have deadlines just kind of slide down and down. And sometimes it's pretty funny to scroll way down and discover stuff. I discover stuff that I meant to do in 2019. And it's still in my phone. So like this is an example. I found this from 2019. I knew that it was from there because of various life events that were happening around this time. This is all pre-pandemic, of course. And many of you know that I'm an ER doctor, so I let a lot of stuff slide during the pandemic because things were so crazy at work. So I thought it might be fun just to look at this. So what does it say? It says, get a new planter, get emotional agility book, look at emoji face, get Nicky Bicky leggings, and noise by poop, which is a little cryptic. So how did I do with all that stuff? Well, I didn't get a new planter. That's my planter. I'm kind of used to that crack now. It almost seems scenic to me. So, and then this is the emotional agility book. I looked this up a couple days ago on Amazon while I was making these slides because I couldn't remember what it was. So this is a book about getting unstuck, embracing change, and thriving in work and life. So I don't know, do I still need this? I made it through the pandemic. So maybe I was emotionally agile, right? So I don't know if I need this book anymore. I guess we'll find out. Then emoji face, I'm sure this was something my daughters told me I needed to do. And now I look at this and I think, was there really a time back in 2019 where I didn't know what emojis were? I guess that's possible. It seems crazy to me now. I'm like, well, of course I know what emojis are. But there it is on the list. Okay, so then there is the Nicky Bicky leggings. I don't know, I kind of feel like now that we've all been through the pandemic, does anybody need more leggings? And I think we can all agree, not these leggings. And lastly, Noise by Pooh. Okay, what's Noise by Pooh about? So this is a song from my childhood. My sister and I had a record of Winnie the Pooh songs growing up, and I loved it. And this was my favorite song, and I think what I'm intuiting from my list was that she had reminded me about this song, and I put it on my to-do list because I wanted to see if I could find a recording or a YouTube clip, and then I never got around to it. So a few days ago, I looked to see if I could find a recording or a YouTube clip, and I couldn't. It's not out there. But I found the words. The words are in the public domain, and here it is for your viewing pleasure. It's about springtime and nature doing its thing. And I'm not going to sing you the whole thing, but I'm going to sing you the last verse. It goes like this. For the spring is really springing, you can see a skylark singing, and the bluebells which are ringing can be heard. And the cuckoo isn't cooing, but he's cooking and he's doing, and a like a bird. So, come to think about it, I think Winnie the Pooh may be one of the great procrastinators. Like, he just wants to sit there in the sun and poo, right? So, but Winnie the Pooh aside, noise by poo aside, most of the things on that list don't seem that important to me anymore, and that's actually part of my theory of procrastination. Sometimes when you put something off, it just goes away on its own, or you discover you don't need it anymore. Unfortunately, that does not work with taxes, unless you're willing to leave the US permanently, just a note. There are other things besides leggings and garden planters that don't have an obvious deadline, but things where we can get hurt if we procrastinate. And I'm thinking about common sense stuff like going to the dentist or getting your recommended cancer screening tests. We all know we have to do those and we can't put them on for too long. But I'm also thinking about things like climate change, where we collectively and our government specifically have procrastinated like crazy about taking serious action. Global warming is a pretty tough problem and the solutions are difficult and sometimes unpleasant. And we don't have a clear deadline. And I think that's one of the toughest things about it is we don't know what the deadline is. We don't know where the tipping point is. To Sasha's point with the Sisyphus pushing the planet over the edge, we don't know where that tipping point is, or even if we may already have passed it. So that's tough. And we also don't feel like we have very much power as individuals to make a big impact on global warming, even though most of us are trying pretty hard to do our part. So that got me reflecting, though, on another area of our lives where we do have immense power, and that's in our relationships. I'm guilty of procrastinating in a recent relationship. I knew I should be willing to talk about the problem areas and work on ways to improve the relationship, but I kind of didn't want to, or I was scared, or I thought it would be unpleasant, or maybe I just thought things would gradually get better if we kept ignoring the uncomfortable stuff. And so I procrastinated. And now that person has gone out of my life and I miss them. I learned a painful lesson about procrastination when it comes to doing hard relationship work. Fortunately, there's one bit of relationship work where I've never wanted to procrastinate, and that's letting my friends and family know that I value and appreciate them, and that includes all of you. So in case I haven't said it recently, you all mean a lot to me. Thank you for being such a wonderful community. I wish you all the luck in getting shit done. Oh, and one last thing. I'll tell you later. Thank you for that. And now we have announcements. And I believe Alexis is going to come and sorry. Thank you, Alexis. We have a moment of reflection. Thank you, and now Alexis.
Al's taller than me. All right. All right, so we have a lot of things coming up. The first one I'm most excited about because it's happening the soonest is right now after Assembly. We're having a dessert demo where we'll be having vegan desserts and how to make them. Fran, Andy, and Beth have volunteered to share some great vegan desserts and do demos for us after today's assembly, so please stick around for that. Next up, the second thing I'm excited about is our Saturday, next slide. Do we have a slide for? Yes, we do. Summer Solstice Backyard Potluck. Do you remember the Life Happens announcement with the kitten? The kitten will be there. And I've promised you all you can pet her whether she knows about it or not. Our next seasonal backyard potluck this Saturday, or next Saturday, we will provide the meat and vegan burgers and dogs and drinks. You all get to bring the rest. This is a perfect time to hang out and meet people. All of these events are on Meetup. So please RSVP there. Our public Google Calendar is also in the paper program. And then we are having our annual 4th of July fireworks watching party. It's here. It's actually out there. If you can imagine the view, if you haven't been before, it's pretty great. The tickets are $10. Kids under 10 are free. It includes pizza, salad, beverages, and of course pie, and music and games. These tickets go fast and are limited. Get them on our meetup before we hit our limit. Optional, there are only 20 tickets left right now. Optional, I think, was a note to me. I could read that or not. It seems easy. All right, next up is the thing I am most excited about because I'm in charge of it, and also least excited. No, I'm just kidding. Pride Parade is coming up. We are going to participate in the parade again. And not the festival with a booth, but with probably just us enjoying the festival instead of working it. How's that sound? Okay, great. Sounds great to me too. We're gonna do, I'm gonna be coming up to a lot of you and seeing if you will be able to do Pride Parade. We need bodies. We bring decorations for those bodies. We will bring energy. We will bring a truck. We will bring snacks and waters. We just need participation so that people know that we exist. And sometimes our signs that just say snacks on them or non-religious community is enough to bring people here and go, they didn't know we existed. And they didn't know there was a space for them. So it's very important that we show up, we have our signs, and we just make our presence known and make new friends. I'm really excited about that. Please be looking at Meetup for an RSVP for that, so I know how many people are coming, how to plan. And also, we're going to do a seed packing party at my house to be determined, the date, where we'll all just, it's a party if I feed you, right? But it's a work party. We're putting seeds into packets that we hand out at Pride for local wildflowers. The theme this year is power, and we're doing flower power. And finally, our next assembly is July, and it is our annual cookie bake-off. The eating is free, but if you want to go full Paul Hollywood and judge the baked goods, that will be $5. Bring your homemade baked goods to compete for the coveted Best Cookie Trophy. All right, so we have a little technical difficulty with our Zoomblers. The iPad we're using for Zoom is dying. I think it's at 5%, but we will wave to them in spirit. Oh no, we'll wave to them for real. They're coming, I can hear myself. Echo. Technical difficulties, well-oiled, well-run machine we run here. That is it, thank you so much.
So, real quick little story. We lost Brian Wilson this week. Brian Wilson from the Beach Boys. Some of you may know who he is, and some of you may not, but the Beach Boys were a very popular group in the 60s, and Brian was kind of the leader of the band, and then he was an incredibly brilliant music producer and created songs like Good Vibrations and things that are with so much depth and so much complexity, and he just had this mind that did that. I always loved the Beach Boys, and I always loved Brian Wilson. I was working up in LA at a company that sold recording studio equipment back in the 80s. And one of my customers / friends was a guy named Gary Usher. And Gary Usher was a singer-songwriter. He was a producer-songwriter, and he wrote a lot of stuff. He produced albums for the Byrds and for a bunch of other bands. He also co-wrote "In My Room," which was a big hit for the Beach Boys in that era. And so we were talking one time, and we were all going over to a trade show, and he said, "Hey, Paul, I'm going to bring Brian to the show. Would you like to meet him?" You know, Brian was a complex guy. He was quite tormented by mental health issues. So Gary brought Brian over, and I had a few moments with him. And it was, you know, a lot of people meet celebrities and go, "Oh God, I got to really a jerk. That wasn't Brian. He had kind eyes, he had a gentle voice, he seemed genuinely happy to meet me for some reason. And, so there's my little tribute to Brian. I do have a great quote though. It says, Brian says, never lick the lollipop of mediocrity because it will stick to you the rest of your life. Let's all stand up and sing this thing. Dedicated to all the 12 million people who showed up yesterday. Well, I won't back down. No, I won't back down. You can stand me up at the gates of hell, but I won't back down. I won't stand my ground. Hold me, turn around, and I'll keep this world from dragging me down. I won't stand my ground, and I won't back down. Hey, baby, there ain't no easy way out. Hey, I stand my ground, and I won't back down. But I know what's right. I got just one life in a world that keeps on pushing me around. But I'll stand my ground, and I won't back down. Here we go. Hey, baby, there ain't no easy way out. Hey, I will stand my ground, and I won't back down. Hey, baby, there ain't no easy way out. Hey, I stand my ground, and I won't back down. No, I won't back down. I hear you. I won't back down, and I won't back down.
That's it, folks. Stay behind for coffee and snacks. And the last thing I'll say is we are all volunteers here. We're dependent on donations to keep this whole thing going, including every assembly, meetup, and community service project. So if you can, stick some cash in one of the jars or use the QR code in your program to set up a monthly recurring donation if you haven't already done so. If you're already a monthly donor, thank you. Truly, every penny matters. And please enjoy the vegan desserts and coffee and snacks, and thanks for being here.
Trucking along, short.
Okay. Yeah. You know what? I bet you that was the best orchid. That was almost better than any orchid flag been through. Because afterwards, I'm thinking, what's it, Saturday in New Park? It had that kind of atmosphere to it.
Yeah.
And, yeah, and,
Still a Sunday, maybe you can step away from it. I don't know.
Yeah, I know.
Good job, Ed, good job.
you can stop it.